to go to the next speaker, who is Justin Rebo from BioAge. Is Justin here?
Is that working?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
All right, great. So to start with, I'd like to really thank the organizers for inviting me here today. It's really a pleasure. And thank you all for joining me to hear about BioAge. BioAge is a clinical stage biotechnology company that discovers and develops drugs to treat aging and diseases of aging. Based on our unique and proprietary human aging cohorts and genomics profiles, we've built a data-driven map of the different molecular pathways that get dysregulated as you get older. We're focused first on in-licensing de-risked clinical stage assets against several key targets that emerge from this map. We've recently brought in our first 2 platform-derived assets, and we're initiating phase 2 efficacy trials for both in the next couple of months. In both cases, targeting serious diseases in older patients. Today, I'll be primarily focused on BGE-175 for the treatment of COVID-19 and other diseases derived from immune dysregulation with age. But really, I'd like to start on a high note. Here is a depiction of the Black Death, the plague. 700 years ago, it caused the deaths of 200 million people across Eurasia. It took 200 years for the European population to reach its pre-plague levels. This is the pinnacle of human misery, and it's gone. We look back with sadness at the plague as a horrible thing that used to happen. This is not something we worry about today. But really, we are in the midst of something that is far worse than the Black Death. So something that has killed more than 50 billion people. In 700 years, as far in the future as the Black Death is in the past, it is inconceivable that people will still die of cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, cancer, immunosenescence. Those people will look back with sadness at how we suffer today, the same way we look back at the Black Death. I'm here to share with you what we do to maybe make that day happen a little bit sooner than 700 years in the future. BioAge is a biotechnology company that develops proprietary drugs to treat aging and age-related diseases. BioAge has raised $130 million in venture capital funding from Andreessen Horowitz, Kaiser Permanente Hospitals, Coastal Ventures, Felices Ventures, and others. They believe in our AI-driven approach to map the molecular pathways that impact human longevity. We take a data-first and also a human-first approach to find novel aging targets. We're an interdisciplinary and talented team of computational biologists, experimental scientists, and seasoned drug hunters. We've built a systems biology platform that leverages deep omics data we generate from unique human cohorts to identify drug targets that impact aging. We've also established proprietary in-house biology and in vivo screening capabilities to validate these new aging targets. We then turn new validated targets into drug programs. Our mission is to develop a pipeline of therapeutic assets that increase health span and lifespan. Aging is the major driver of almost every chronic disease that ultimately kills you. All these here increase exponentially with age. Chronic diseases are 75% of US healthcare expenditures. What we know from work in aging biology from the past few decades is that there are molecular factors that drive fundamental processes of aging that are important to several of these diseases at once. An aging drug target is one that by definition must impact multiple age-related diseases. The science tells us that it's possible to target aging directly. This will have a much greater impact on health in targeting diseases one at a time. Aging drug targets are the most high impact. This is why we work on aging. This is our focus at BioAge. It's important to study aging in humans because model organisms do not age the same way that we do. Humans die of diverse causes: heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, the flu. And this is not true in mice, flies, and other models. Mice die almost entirely from cancer, and very often from what we would call benign tumors, but they're just so small that a benign tumor can kill them. Flies die because their intestines fail. You can extend fly lifespan just by increasing intestinal wall integrity. This is a huge problem for translation. We're now in a unique time in the history of aging where we can study aging pathways directly in humans because of mature omics technologies. Deep omics profiling of the right human aging cohorts, proteome, metabolome, transcriptome, are needed to build the best biomarkers and find the best aging mechanisms and drug targets. As you know, humans age on the scale of decades. How can you map out which pathways are the most important for human aging? The answer is you need molecular data that spans decades. At BioAge, we have exclusive relationships with some very special biobanks that have human samples collected up to 50 years ago from people when they were middle-aged and healthy. There's longitudinal samples and health records tracking these people for the entire rest of their lives. Once you have these data, you can ask the question, what's different about 50-year-olds who go on to live to be 90, 100 or more, and are still healthy versus 50-year-olds who only live for another 10 years? We then build a molecular map of these differences. That's really where all of our hypotheses come from. We can then validate these for their effects on aging. Our models discover existing biomarkers and drug targets. These dots represent significant mortality targets derived from our data. The white ones are novel, discovered exclusively from our data. The blue overlap with existing known targets. These help validate the program. The point here is that we have many more targets that are as powerful or much more so than anything even on the radar anywhere else. These are exclusive to our platform. My focus today is BGE-175 for immune aging. It has very broad potential for viral and bacterial respiratory challenges. It is a very potent inhibitor of PGD2, DP1 receptor signaling, and safe and well tolerated in over 2,400 patients in phase 1 through 3 trials in the initial indication. This is a very de-risked drug. Our pathway maps show it's very closely linked to longevity and health span. Now, with this drug as our model indication, we're going to COVID-19 and older patients where there's a lot of unmet need. Now we can get a very quick clinical readout that should work independent of viral type. After that, it'll be the gateway to hospitalized influenza and ultimately respiratory infections where markets are large and established, but there's still a lot of unmet need. These are $5 to $9 billion markets a year. We've built out this map. We've committed to 2 programs so far, BGE-175 and another I'm not talking about today involved with blood and muscle aging, but there's a lot more coming. Fundamentally, we're a platform company. I think most of us know that COVID is very much a disease of immune aging. The risk of death from COVID increases dramatically with age. The risk to young adults and children is low. The risk to older adults is very high. This is due to the dysregulation of the aged immune system. Sadly, the majority of clinical trials worldwide for COVID-19 vaccine and treatment largely exclude older persons, those most affected by the disease. Let's talk just a little bit about the mechanism of BGE-175. It can improve aspects of both innate and adaptive immunity, which is pretty unique for this mechanism. DP1 receptor increases in expression as you get older and has multiple negative effects on the immune system. Older people don't have enough dendritic cell activation in response to a virus. At the same time, they have too much neutrophil infiltration. We see this later in the course of the disease. After viral titers have already improved, neutrophils continue to do damage. BGE-175 blocks this mechanism and has the potential to improve both these aspects of immunity that become dysregulated as you get older, in addition to other things that I don't have the scope to go into right now. BGE-175 is an immune aging drug with very broad potential that we have been working on for a couple of years. When we were looking at it earlier in 2020, the pandemic hit and we thought it might really help older patients with COVID, which is clearly driven by immune aging. We reached out to Stanley Perlman. Stanley is one of the top coronavirus experts in the United States. He's been studying coronaviruses for decades. He's on the FDA advisory committee for all the vaccines that you hear about. He's developed a lot of the models in the field. We reached out to him and we looked at our drug in older mouse efficacy models challenged with SARS coronaviruses, SARS-CoV-1 and SARS-CoV-2. Stanley is very excited about our mechanism. He agrees it should be very helpful for several human pathogens. There was a quote from him on the bottom right there. We've been working closely in collaboration for Stanley for much of 2020 to help develop BGE-175 for COVID. Not to belabor the point, here's the experiment we ran with Stanley for SARS coronavirus. We infected middle-aged mice with SARS-CoV. So we infected these middle-aged mice with SARS and only began treating them on day 2 post-infection. They were treated with BGE-175 from days 2 to 8, and then the treatment was stopped. You can see that 100% of the mice that were on drugs survived, and only 1 mouse on vehicle survived. So it's a really clean signal. Stanley told us this was very unusual. It's really hard to get this kind of separation with a drug, and he hadn't seen it before. And these data are also the best that I'm aware of for rescue in this model. This effect is very clear and strong, and we have replicated these data. This goes along with improved morbidity. You can see the weights on the right. This is not SARS specific. We expect to see similar signals with a wide range of infections caused by declining immune systems with age. We have similar data that I really can't share today with other viral types, including COVID, flu, and other infections. These are the viral titers at day 5 with the SARS data. We have a 10-fold decrease in viral titers in the BGE-175 treated group. Now, it's very, very important to point out, this is not an antiviral drug, and it should be synergistic with them. This drug works by making the age immune system respond more appropriately, respond more like a young immune system to the virus. This drug is being tested in humans with COVID-19. First, we're starting off with a COVID trial looking at older patients who are hospitalized, but not yet intubated. So sick, but not like incredibly sick. Then there'll be 14 days of dosing. The primary endpoint here will be the COVID ordinal outcome scale for how these people are doing. And timeline-wise, we're going to have the first patient in the next month and a half or so. We're going to have all the data for this trial later this year. In 2022, we can begin to look at additional indications, respiratory infections, viral pneumonia, other infections. As I mentioned, there's really broad potential for this mechanism for viruses, bacterial co-infections, as well as other possible indications of immune dysregulation with age. COVID-19 has really brought immune aging to the forefront of everyone's attention. Again, our animal data is clear. Our drug is not specific to COVID. I'm getting some feedback. Okay, there it goes. Our drug is not specific to COVID. In fact, we were developing it for aged immune systems before anyone knew COVID existed. Armed with our human COVID data, we expect to expand into other infectious indications in 2022. We've been very fortunate to bring on a very talented and experienced group of people to accomplish everything on our roadmap. We are aging biologists, we are data scientists, and we are drug developers. And together we're focusing on the intersection where aging meets disease to identify new disease targets driven by aging. And finally, just to end with our mission statement, BioAge is mapping human aging to develop a pipeline of therapies that treat disease and extend health span. And these are the people at BioAge that I really need to thank. This is all the BioAge leadership team, and I need to give a special thanks to the BioAge preclinical BGE-175 team, as well as the Perlman lab team. And I want to give an extra special thanks to Kia for helping put this presentation together. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Justin. I don't see questions in the chat. So any other questions from somebody? No? No. Okay.
Question.
Right.
Somebody? No? Harold? Okay.
It's very simple. This neutrophil inhibitor is a small molecule, easily synthesized.
Yes, I mean, like it's not really a neutrophil inhibitor. Like it selectively inhibits some aspects of neutrophil activity, while at the same time it upregulates dendritic cell activity, among other things. And it is a small molecule. It's orally bioavailable. You can take it when you eat at home. Not that we know of. It's very well tolerated. It's already been in 2,400 human patients.
Wow. Yeah, beautiful work. Thank you.
Thank you.